This podcast is a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to find out more. Enjoying the show each week? Consider supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/radiomike. You get a bonus podcast every week, The Pat and Mike Show with me and producer Pat. Plus, there's a whole back catalogue of hours and hours of bonus content. Patreon.com/radiomike. If this show is worth $1 an episode, then sign up, support independent podcasting, support this independent podcaster. And if you can't, rate the podcast 5 stars on Spotify right now. Okay, now it's time for the show. Today on the show, I'm being cancelled again, this time by the Christians. The Matilda'S fever is massive in Australia and I love it. Plus, another song that you forgot existed. All that and more on 20th Century Boy, the only podcast that's based on a true story. Welcome to 20th Century Boy. My name is Radio Mushroom, and this is the inside of my mind. Oh, welcome to the show, guys. Really glad to be here for another week. And Radio Mike, of course, is my name. I'm sure you know that. But every week on the show, as you know, if you're a long-term listener of the show, and if you're a new-time listener, welcome. But long-term listeners will know. Each week, start the show with a new RM-themed name, you know? Well, sometimes it's RM-themed, like RM Williams for Radio Mike. Sometimes it's just Mike-themed, opening it up to just be radio-themed, but like Mike-themed, you know, like Mike Hart will go on, Mike Chemical Romance. I'm actually, for video viewers on the YouTube, I'm wearing a My Chemical Romance t-shirt this week, which is cool. This week, Radio Mushroom, RM-themed, because huge story at the moment in Melbourne, or in, well, I don't know if it's not Melbourne, in Australia, around death cap mushrooms, if you haven't heard about it. Very, very interesting story. We're not a true crime podcast here on 20th Century Boy, but indulge me for a sec, because it's like, if you haven't heard of it, I think it is making international headlines, but this woman hosted a dinner party with her ex-husband's mother and father, uncle and auntie, and her kids, cooks them all this mushroom dish, which she doesn't eat and doesn't give to her kids, but gives to everyone else. 3 of those people who ate the mushrooms died, like within 24 hours. 1 is currently fighting for their life in hospital. She's denying that she poisoned them, essentially, but all this weird stuff is coming out. Like, it's gonna be a Netflix documentary one day. This mushroom story, it is destined to be a Netflix documentary. I just saw a new thing, like, 1, she's like lied to the police, like it's come out that she's lied to the police. 2, the latest news is like a painter at her house found like satanic messages on the wall of her house, like that she had written, and she asked him to paint over them. 3, she like threw out a mushroom dehydrator that day, like evidence maybe of what she did. She threw it out and they found it at a tip. This whole thing's fascinating. And then they're all saying, well, this guy, the one guy who survived the dinner, who's still alive, but he's the key to all of the answers, but he's currently like fighting for his life. He needs a liver transplant. Destined to become a Netflix documentary or like an ABC dramatization. This is fascinating stuff. I really would love to see because could be a huge coincidence, could definitely be like a giant coincidence, but also could be like this woman plotted to poison and murder these people. Apparently her husband the year earlier went to hospital with the same symptoms, which makes people think that she tried to poison her ex-husband last year. But also, yeah, just the fact that she didn't give it to her kids, incredible. If anyone has any insights on this, I find it absolutely crazy. So yeah, Radio Mushroom, in tribute to Australia's biggest story at the moment. Australia's biggest story, of course, aside from the Matilda'S, but first of all, just a reminder, this is 20th Century Boy, the podcast that is the conversations you wish you were having about the stuff that no one else cares about. And, you know, that's what this podcast is. It's sitting down with me for an hour each week, just having a conversation, a one-sided conversation that you can respond to. Radio.Mike on Insta, tweet about the show at It's Radio Mike, radiomikepod@gmail.com, wherever you want, comment on videos, whatever you, honestly, it doesn't bother me. However you want to get in touch with me. If you're on the patreon.com/Radio Mike, not only do you get the Pat and Mike bonus podcast every Friday, but if you're on the executive producer tier, $20 a month and above, which I think we have 4 or 5 people, you just get my phone number. So you can text me, hey Mike, great episode this week, shooting you a text from executive producer Damo, or whoever it is. A few follow-up things this week. Might be a shorter ep, but that's cool. I'm liking more like the 40 to 45 minute eps at the moment. First thing I did want to talk about, of course, is the Matilda'S. Now, I'm recording this on a Wednesday. Tonight, at time of recording, the Matilda'S are playing in the semi-final. And by the time this is out, they either would have won or lost. So, I'm going to do a choose your own adventure for you guys. If the Matilda'S did win last night, if you're listening, on the day this came out, stay here. If the Matilda'S lost, skip forward 10 seconds. So the Matilda'S won last night and it was an awesome game. I loved it so much. It was amazing seeing them play. So the Matilda'S lost last night. Really disappointing, but well done to our girls. They played so well. I was really happy to watch them play. And to get that far, to get that traction, just amazing work. Yeah. But that's the thing about doing a podcast, you can't always get all the topical stories. I don't know whether the Matilda'S are going to win or lose tonight. I will certainly be watching. I really hope we do win. But man, oh man, the Matilda'S fever is massive. Like, this is again, like everyone's talking about this here in Australia at the moment. But like, I have never been so invested in a sport in my life. And of course, I've never been super invested in sports. This is my bigger year of footy this year. But I am so invested in the Matilda'S, and I think it's such a good thing on a bunch of levels. One, for the sport of soccer, which has always obviously been much smaller than AFL here in Australia for good reason. But just for women's sport and for young girls to see like, hey, this is how far you can come. I think it's incredible. I think it's just remarkable. I think they play such amazing soccer. They're so incredible at what they do. And it's just the role models and just like, yeah, like, I don't know. I think 4 million people watched the match the other night against France, which was incredible, ended in a penalty shootout in which Australia won 7-6. It was just the most remarkable sporting thing I've ever seen, because the AFL, there was a match between Carlton and Melbourne. Was it Carlton and Melbourne? Carlton and Geelong? So I can't even remember who it was. Carlton and Melbourne, I think it was. 2 big teams, both of which are like doing really well in the AFL this year, which I know because it's my bigger year of footy. And Channel 7, who's broadcasting the soccer and broadcast the footy, and this is Melbourne, where Melbourne and Carlton are playing. This is a big game for people in Melbourne, especially. They didn't stop the soccer to go to the footy. They kept the soccer running. They also the soccer ran through the news. They didn't do the news that night on Channel 7, which is huge. Didn't go to the footy, didn't do the news. And there's some amazing footage from Triple M, and it's I might put this in post. I didn't prepare it, but Triple M, which commentates the footy live, and a bunch of people are at the MCG watching the Melbourne Carlton game, but everyone is also at the same time watching the soccer, like on their phones and iPads and stuff. So you got this stadium full of people to see Melbourne and Carlton play football, but they're also watching the Matilda'S game. So the entire crowd is like cheering loudly when the Matilda'S score one of their penalties, and the footy players are getting confused on the field because they're like, wait, what? We didn't, what? They don't understand that. Well, they do, but they're getting confused because they're hearing the crowd roar at the wrong time for the footy match because everyone's actually just watching the Matilda'S. Remarkable. And this footage from Triple M is when they're calling the footy, and this is someone I know from work, a work friend, Ethan Meldrum, who is the guy speaking in this. He's basically having to call the Matilda'S game in the footy commentary that's going to air on Triple M because everyone is more interested in that. So I'll put in some audio and some awesome video of that here.
Have been rolling hard in the last 8 weeks, but also live what's happening one more time. Choice Hotels around the ground, Heath.
Australia score this penalty. They're through to the World Cup semi-final. Don't know who's about to take it. I think it's fine. So if they get this Australia, it's 6-6 at the moment. This is Australia's 10th penalty after France just missed their last one. They get this, they're through to the World Cup semi-final.
She's on the runway here. She starts right, and they're through. Unbelievable scenes. The Matilda'S have won the penalty shootout in the most dramatic of fashions.
Oh, I love soccer.
Will stay live. They've got a big huddle up in Brisbane. The MCG's got absolutely distraught. The Matilda'S are through. And live here at the MCG, it's Carlton 139. Melbourne, 1 goal straight 6.
Again, I have never seen something like that happen in footy. Like, the Australian game is being shafted for the Matilda'S, and I think it's incredible. And so many funny things have come out of that game, not the least of which is Barnaby Joyce. Now, if you're not from Australia, which many of you aren't, and I hope that sometimes you enjoy hearing a bit of Australian pop culture on this show, I do try to keep it broad, but, you know, I can't this week. It's all Matilda'S. And Barnaby Joyce, geez, he's a politician. At one point, I believe he was acting Prime Minister under Scott Morrison's government, our former Prime Minister. I think so. This guy was, like, for a brief time in charge of our country. Just a big idiot. Just a big, dumb idiot. Barnaby Joyce is a big, dumb idiot. And he proved it this week. And like this, I've said before on the show, it's amazing to me the people who we elect into power, not just in Australia, in the world. Donald Trump. Like, how was that guy in charge of a country? Joe Biden. How? Every time I see Joe Biden doing anything, I'm just like, this guy has no idea what's going on. This guy, I think his brain is running at like 1% speed as everyone else. He has no idea what's going on. He forgets everything. He can barely string a sentence together. He's completely senile. I do not understand Joe Biden. I do not get it. And then, you know, you've got people like Scott Morrison. You've got people like Barnaby Joyce. All of these people that you're just like, how did you become the leader of a country? How did you actually get to the point where you're in charge of a country on this planet? Like, is this really the best we have to offer? Anyway, Barnaby Joyce is at the local pub watching the Matilda'S play France, except he's not. He's watching the wrong game on Channel 10. It's a friendly between Australia and France that happened like a month ago that ends with Australia winning 1-0. He thinks he's watched the game. He finds out later, when everyone else in Australia is talking about a penalty shootout that was nail-bitingly good, right? That he watched the wrong game. And here's him talking about it on TV the next day.
Well, I went to the pub and watched them on the weekend, but I think, and you'll see it on the Facebook post, I think we're watching the wrong game. I think they'd put on a repeat because it was on Channel 10. I don't think it was the right one, but because when we finished the game, Australia had won 1-0 in full time. So we were like, that's good. Still won.
Barnaby, just to let you know, the Matilda'S won.
I know. It was an incredible penalty shootout, which we went and had dinner because we thought they'd won 1-0 in that full time.
Did you see there was a penalty shootout like nothing we've seen in men's or women's soccer? There was no penalty shootout in the one you watched?
No. Australia just won 1-0. I think it was a previous game. It was pretty dodgy. Whatever was happening, I think was pretty dodgy. I don't think they'd paid for their vision or something.
Right.
But anyway,
okay. Look, if you just keep it on Channel 7, Barnaby, that'll get you through.
I love how he also, like, he's blaming the pub. He's like, I don't think they'd paid for their vision. It was on free-to-air TV. The entire nation was watching it. Everyone in the country had no trouble figuring it out. Incredible. Like, the fact that no one was like, hey, I don't think this is the right game. Like everyone else is talking about something completely different. Like it's just remarkable. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it. Also, I didn't play the Sting, but it's obviously Mike's bigger year of footy, which is to do with AFL. But the bigger year of footy never specifies which football code the footy refers to. So this is completely applicable for Mike's bigger year of footy, right? Now, the other thing is there was this other hilarious thing that sort of went viral, which I think it's so funny. There was I don't know the details of the flight. I should have looked it up. There is vision of a plane in which like everybody on the plane is watching the Matilda'S game on the back of the seats, right? Everyone's got the Matilda'S playing. It's all synced up, except for one person on the plane who is watching The Lord of the Rings. And it stands out like a sore thumb. It's like, there's literally like 30 seats you can see in front of you that are all playing the Matilda'S. It's all in sync except this one guy where you can just see Gandalf talking to Frodo. And it's like, why are you the only person on this plane not watching it? Just get into it, mate. I thought that was so funny. It's incredible. But yeah, this is just the most I've ever been into a sport. And like the Matilda'S, I think our whole nation is just so proud and so stoked with what they're achieving, what they're doing. And yeah, I really hope it's a win tonight. By the time you're listening, you'll know, I'll know, but fingers crossed. In the meantime, I've just been, still just getting ready for my trip. I realize it's been a big countdown, but we're finally like 3 weeks away. I bought an iPad. I don't know why. I was just like, sorry, I'm just trying to show it to the camera. I bought this iPad. It was on special. And going to put it out to the listeners, just help me out a bit. Because, as you know, I'm trying to, I've as I said in one of the recent episodes, I've never been on a long-haul flight. So I'm just sort of like, I don't know what to expect. Am I going to be super bored? I just need to have unlimited options of stuff to do when I'm on the plane. And like, I've always been like a Kindle guy. I've got a Kindle, but realized on iPad, and this obviously isn't an ad for iPad, but like, you can just put you can use it as an e-reader. So first of all, it's replaced my Kindle. You just put books on it, but also there's this app called Panels, and you can just put comic books on it. So I've loaded my iPad up with comic books that I've always wanted to read in hopes that like when I'm on the plane, I'll be like, all right, got nothing to do. Gonna put some comics on. I downloaded a bunch of the Simpsons comics and Futurama comics because I'm like, I've always wanted to read those, but I just like never had time. And just stuff like that, different manga, like the One Piece manga, I want to give a read. Some of like the Dragon Ball manga and a bunch of other stuff. So any recommendations for comic books or like graphic novels, let me know. Like I've got a bunch of Spider-Man stuff, just stuff I can flick through on the plane while I'm bored. Stuff like that would be sick. 20th Century Boy will be right back. We interrupt this broadcast to broadcast? It's a podcast, Mike. Sorry, guys. Okay, I'm just going to get into it. You can watch clips and catch up on moments from this show over on the YouTube channel. Just type in Radio Mike. We are growing, so get on that train. Plus, of course, the Patreon, which I have already plugged. I do not have to do that again. Plus, the Instagram page for the pod at TCBpod. Plus, my Instagram at radio.mike. Make sure you stay in touch with everything I'm doing. I mean, I'm going to be going on holiday soon, so you are going to be wanting to see all the shit I'm doing in Disneyland and other shit like that. Make sure you follow me and help out the show. Support independent podcasting. Go and listen to my other podcast, Harry Potter and the Boys. That's all the plugs I can think of at the moment. Let's get on with the podcast. Okay, here it is. Let's stop talking like this and see. I'm being cancelled again. Concurrently, I'm being cancelled twice at the moment. And I say cancelled, I just mean people are pissed off at me on the internet, which I find hilarious. I mean, if this was 5 years ago, I would have been terrified and I would have quit the podcast. But now I just, once, it is a very liberating feeling to just stop giving a shit about anything. I'm just I don't care. I'm just putting up what I think's funny. I do not care how people react. Now, of course, the first ongoing cancellation is for all of the Michael Jackson stuff I've said, which I'm not going to get into again. New cancellation, which I did wonder if I'd get cancelled for it. Last week on the show, I mentioned that Futurama is better than Jesus because it's resurrected from the dead 3 times. Jesus has only resurrected from the dead 1 time. And I've had an influx of Christians just really pissed off at me about it. People are just really angry that in an obvious joke, I've compared the animated sitcom Futurama to the non-animated Messiah, Jesus Christ. And some of these comments are amazing. What do we get here? What do we got? I probably should have prepared this a bit, but blasphemy, the intro be disrespectful. What else we got? Did bro really just compare a TV show to Jesus? Christ is way clear of any show. And then I replied, Jesus died for your sins. And this guy says, I know, and I love him. Bro just spouted blasphemy for Futurama. Bro said it was better than Jesus. Bro getting sent straight to hell. And then I said, see you there. And this guy goes, whoa. Then someone said, this is just sad. Do you have any respect for Christianity? I said, no, I really don't. Don't you dare mock Jesus. Ain't no way that this piece of shit compared Jesus to a fucking TV show. Ain't no way you disrespect Michael Jackson and then say someone is better than Jesus. Fuck, that's funny. Anyway, I did want to, there's a segment that I did a few times back in the day. I can't even remember when. And I always love trolling through all of the segment openers of this show and being like, when could I bring something back? And I think it's finally time to bring back this segment. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the dumbest comment I received all week. And we've got a huge fuckwit tonight. Here's your host, Radio Mike. Hello, welcome to the dumbest comments I've received all week. This just made me laugh so much because, it just, to me, this epitomizes the lack of any intelligence in the internet comments because, as I've explained already, and a few people have commented correctly, I am comparing Futurama, the animated television series, to Jesus Christ, the man who allegedly was the Son of God. And this guy, I'm not even going to say this guy's name, but he commented on the TikTok, and he says this. And just the key point, the key part to remember as I read his comment is that I am talking about the animated sitcom created by Matt Groening and David X. Cohen, Futurama. He says this. Did this guy you're talking about heal people? Did he turn water into wine? Did he feed 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish? No. Well, no, he did, guys. I'm not talking about a guy. I'm talking about Futurama, the animated sitcom created by Matt Groening and David X. Cohen. That is the dumbest comment I've received all week. When you must have seen the video of me talking about Futurama, but then you thought I was talking about an individual guy, or you just didn't watch the video and jumped on a bandwagon because you're like, this person's mocking Jesus. Anyway, some of the dumbest shit I've ever seen. If you listen to the Pat and Mike show or Harry Potter and the Boys, you would already have heard of my brand new project that I'm working on. I'm making a list of everyone that I have ever met in my life. That's right. I am making a list of everyone that I have ever met in my life. And it's hard. I'm up to about 1,400 people. And, you know, there's definitely heaps more people that can go on the list. And it's a constant work in progress. Every time you meet someone new, you've got to add them to the list. And, you know, I'm really enjoying it. It's a fun process. It's just a stupid thing to do. And it's interesting because, first of all, if I've met you listening, please reach out to me. That's your job for this week. Just send me a message. Hey, Mike, we met. It was here. We talked about this. You might not remember, but because I don't remember meeting all of you, but you probably would, right? And you have to be on the list because I've met you. But there's also people who you don't even know their first or surnames, but you remember the interaction with them. And they have to go on the list, so I just don't put any names, but I describe where I met them, right? But then there's people that you remember, like you don't know their surname and there's no way of ever finding it. This is an example of someone on my list that I don't think I will ever find his true identity, right? So he's in the top 500 people. His name is Takahiro, and he was a Japanese exchange student at my primary school when I was in grade 3 and maybe grade 4. And he got us to watch Princess Mononoke, the Studio Ghibli film, in class once. I remember that. His name's Takahiro. So I guess like Takahiro, in the off chance that you listen to this show and you, in circa 2003 or 4, you were working as like a student teacher at Sacred Heart Primary School in Kew, then please reach out and tell me your surname. You are on my list. I do remember you. And you played Princess Mononoke for us in class, but I would love to find your surname so I can add it to the list. Because, yeah, someone did reach out to me on Insta and she was like, hey, Mike, I met you at Ruben Solo's comedy festival show earlier in the year. And I was like, I do not remember you. She's like, here's a photo. And sure enough, like there's a photo of me and her. And I'm like, I have absolutely no memory of this being taken, of meeting you. But yeah, sure, cool. You're on the list because there's evidence that I have met her. So yeah, it's just going to be a work in progress. I'm hoping to get to about 2,000 people, you know, but I'm sure the list would be 10,000. Like it's going to start getting to, because the rule is if I remember the interaction with them, whether I know their first and surname or not, if I remember an interaction with them, then they're on the list. So it's like guy who helped me at the airport when I was trying to figure out if I had to check my luggage or not when I was flying to Sydney last year to record Hamish and Andy's Remembering Project. I don't know that guy's name. I never will, but he should be on the list, right? Or, I don't know, girl who came up to me at the airport and said, are you Mike from Hamish and Andy? I was like, yes. She's on the list. She has to be on the list, but I don't know her name. You know, stuff like that. Stuff where it's like I'm never going to figure out these people's names, but they have to be on the list because I have met them. Another update from last week, and I think we're going to make this sort of one of these. All the write-ins that you sent in. This is where I read out stuff that this is a bit of a mailbag segment. This came in from one of our favourite listeners, one of my favourite listeners, and one of our most, you know, interacting with the show listeners, which I encourage you to do, by the way. You guys really help build the show. Like if you ever have any questions, comments, concerns, queries, complaints, compliments, insults, anything you want me to talk about, anything you want, any questions you have, anything at all that you want me to talk about, like, hey, Mike, I saw this story in the news. Can you give your take on that or anything like that? Please write in radiomikepod@gmail.com or wherever. You guys help build the show. Some weeks it's easier to come up with content ideas than others. Some weeks, like this week, I struggled a bit. Like I was like, there's not a huge amount of stuff around, but if you guys send stuff in, send comments and stuff, it helps me build a show each week. So please do that. This one comes in from Radio Ryan Adams, our 50-something-year-old listener from Denver, Colorado.
Denver sucks ass.
And it's in relation to last week, in which I talked about the Post Malone song Socialite, in which he makes a reference to Shrek. Just played the slow-mo version instead of the proper version, but that's okay. You guys get it, especially if you listened last week. Now, I made I do realize after a lot of comments online and stuff, and from this message in particular from Ryan Adams, that I did make a glaring sort of omission of something quite obvious, and that was that I thought when he says calling her Shrek because she got a donkey, I kind of went down the route of like, if you've seen the show We Can Be Heroes with Phil Olivetti, the character who's like, oh, they call me Donkey down at the station. Donkey being a donkey dick, a big dick. A lot of people, including Radio Ryan Adams, kind of showed me how wrong I was. Mike, you need to go back and listen to this week's podcast. What Shrek movie has donkey inside Shrek? I think that might be something you saw on the internet. I have never heard someone refer to a large penis as a donkey in the US. If a woman has a nice backside, she has an ass. Ass is another word for donkey. So when Post Malone calls someone Shrek because they have a donkey, he's saying they have a nice ass. Have fun on your trip. Radio Ryan Adams from Denver, Colorado. Yeah, I do think that's right. I don't know why I went the other way with it. I also asked people, please write in if you have ever heard another song that mentions Shrek. And got a message in from Radio Ben, who is the mastermind behind the theme music for the show. And he says, hey, mate, he lives in Chile. He says, hey, mate, check out this Chilean hit. And it mentions Shrek. I'll put some of the audio in here of the song. But I will say it's a little bit hard to hear, but I will put it in anyway. So I'm going to butcher the Spanish, but it says, Tu eres mi reina, mi nalgona, yo tu Shrek, tu mi Fiona. And Ben has kindly translated, you're my queen, my big-ass girl, I'm your Shrek, you my Fiona. So there is another song out there that references Shrek. You're my queen, my big-ass girl. The song's called Regalona by Young Sister, Cister. So there you go. Any other songs that reference Shrek? Send them in, guys. I'd love to hear them. Two more quick things for the pod this week. All of you would know that I love Pokemon. Big Pokemon boy. Loves the pocket monsters. You know, if there's a monster in my pocket, I'm happy. No, that's not. That's weird. So Pokemon, of course, every few years they release a new batch of Pokemon. You know, maybe another 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 new Pokemon, whatever. And now they do, just to keep it simple, they do like variants of old Pokemon. For example, like, there's a Pokemon called, Vulpix. And in the original, Vulpix was like a fire type fox Pokemon. It was like fire. And then like in one of the recent ones, they're like, now there's ice Vulpix. It's Vulpix, but it's like ice. It's white instead of red, blah, blah, blah. You get it, right? And a lot of old school Pokemon fans will know the Pokemon Diglett, who's like a little mole head that pokes out of the ground. They did a new version of Diglett in the new one called Wiglet, which is like a white sort of mole thing that pokes out of the ground that's much longer than Diglett. And I implore you to Google this because often, and if you've been to the Pokemon Center in Tokyo, they make plushes of every Pokemon. And I think the theory is every Pokemon is someone's favorite Pokemon. So there's just a plush of every single Pokemon at the Pokemon store. I've got one just up here. You can't see it, but it's, I bought Squirtle when I was over there. That's straight from Japan. They've just released a new batch of plush toys of the Pokemon, including a plush for Wiglet, the new Pokemon. And can I just say, I believe that Pokemon has just released an officially branded Pokemon dildo. I don't say that lightly, but if you look at the plush toy for the new Pokemon Wiglet, it is hard to argue that this could not be used as a dildo. I know this is hard because you can't see it, but right now, I don't care where you're listening, I want you to look up Wiglet plush toy on Google, right? Everyone on the internet's talking about this. It looks like a dick. It just looks like, I'm going to hold it up to the camera. This is what it is, if you can see this. It's literally, it even has like a pink tip, like a penis. It just, like, maybe, is it too, I don't know if it would be too soft to use it as a dildo. Also, it's probably made of like cotton, which I don't think would be a good material to put inside you. Dildos are, I think, more made of like rubber and silicone. Cotton would get a bit damp, especially if you're really fired up. But love it that Pokemon have embraced the sex toy market. I think it's great that they've, they're not just for kids anymore, Pokemon. Adults can love them too, in every way. And really happy for this new Wiglet doll. Hey, we haven't done we don't do this as often anymore, but I rediscovered a classic, and I needed to share it with you guys with this. It's Radio Mike's Songs You Forgot Existed. Oh, I forgot about that song. Again, have had this segment compared a bit to Hamish and Andy's Tell Us Someone You Haven't Thought Of in a While. The idea is it's a bit of the opposite, because on that one listeners call in to tell them, but on this one I play you a song that you forgot existed. And it's like, I think we're always trying to figure out, it's one where when I play it and when you hear it, you go, oh yeah, that song. I did forget about that song, right? Like, oh, I haven't heard that in ages. I really forgot about this. And I rediscovered one this week. Classic song. And I am going to say to international listeners, if you weren't in Australia or New Zealand in like 2007, I think it's unlikely you would have heard this song. It's by a New Zealand band, and this song was huge in Australia. See if you can pick it now before I even play it. But I think it was number one in Australia, and I loved it. It is a classic. It's an awesome song. So without further ado, let's do this. All right, everyone, time for another song you forgot existed. This time I'm taking you back to like 2007 with this absolutely classic song that I almost guarantee you forgot existed. Ready to hear it? All right, let's spin it. I see the lights surrounding you, so don't be afraid of something new. It's Lights Surrounding You by Evermore. Boy, oh boy, did I forget that song existed. Lights Surrounding You by Evermore, such a good song. 'Cause I see the light surrounding you. Is there anyone outside of Australia and New Zealand that knows that? Because I don't think it would have been big anywhere else in the world, but I could be wrong. Would love to know. Hey, let's finish up with one of these bad boys. The plug. I'm on the Hamish and Andy pod this week in a fun segment that I thought was quite funny, so go and listen to that. As always, 2 Guys, 1 Cup, an AFL-adjacent podcast with Will Anderson and Charlie Clausen. Each week I do my segment on the bigger year of footy, which is a lot of fun and I really enjoy. Harry Potter and the Boys running, as always, and the Pat and Mike Show over on Patreon. Again, I'm going to end the show by plugging Pat and Mike Show, patreon.com/Radio Mike. There is hours of content there. If you like the show, each week, if you listen, consider paying $1 an episode. That's $4 a month. Like, it makes it really, it really helps, basically. You know, again, independent podcasts, all in-house produced, all of it's done here, all of it's done by me or Pat. And yeah, I just think it would be great to have a few more supporters on there, help us grow, share the pod with your friends, rate it on Spotify. All of that stuff really helps us out. So yeah, if you haven't done that yet, please consider it. And that's about it for this week. I will see you next week or tomorrow on Pat and Mike, or Tuesday on Harry Potter and the Boys if you're a Radio Mike completionist. My name's been Radio Mike, and I guess this has been like the inside of my mind or some shit. I don't know. Bye. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of 20th Century Boy. If you like what you hear each week and you get to the end and you're like, wow, I wish I could listen to more of Mike, then head to the Patreon, patreon.com/Radio Mike. Pat and Mike shows up tomorrow, and there's a bunch in the back catalogue for you to listen to. If you want more of me, go and sign up. Rate this podcast 5 stars on Spotify, and if you can, go and listen to Harry Potter and the Boys as well. It's my fan fiction podcast that I wrote when I was 13. Lots of Mike content to go around, and I'd love for you to consume all of it. Get me inside you, in your ears specifically. Nowhere else, just your ears. Thanks, guys. This podcast was a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to check out all our other content, stay up to date at radio.mike on Instagram, and get in touch, radiomikepod@gmail.com.